What's happening, people, and welcome back to Park Lane Podcast, episode number 20. This is going to be a very somber show today with the lackluster, disappointing, and disgusting performance from Tottenham Hotspur over the past week. There is a hell of a lot of us to talk about, so let's get straight into it. Joined today by our co-host, Harry. Harry, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Hello, everyone. Hi, Luke. Nice to be here again.
Yeah, good to have you again, Harry. I think at some point Dave will be dropping in, so be prepared for that as he's got a lot to talk about. And
He's hiding.
yeah, exactly. And let's crack on. Before we do though, obviously get the admin out of the way. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It is free to subscribe. It does really help us out. And if you're watching in the future, then don't forget to watch the video all the way through because that really, really does help us reach more people. Lastly, if you're listening to us on any podcasting platform, don't forget to follow and leave a 5-star review. Yeah. So, Harry, let's kick this show off with a bit of chat about Arsenal. Now, we sat here last week and we talked about things that we wanted to see from Spurs, and we saw absolutely none of it. Give me, first of all, kind of your thoughts immediately after the Arsenal game. Like, what were you thinking? What were you feeling?
I wasn't happy, obviously, because I don't think, especially that first half, I don't think we turned up. And I don't think even towards the end of the game, I don't think we gave enough to get anything out of that game. I thought Arsenal were very, very good. And they didn't do anything, the things that we spoke about before the game. But part of me kind of expected that with us, knowing how we performed in the first half. And we're a bit better in the second half, but not enough to get anything out of the game. And the reality is, Arsenal came to us and they completely dominated. And that's not acceptable not to turn up for a whole half and more than that in a North London derby.
Yeah, no, 100%. My point as a Spurs fan, right, is I've always said this, and it might kind of sound a bit like odd, but like for me, as long as the team turns up week in, week out, as long as we see fight, desire, passion, and effort from a Spurs team, right?
Yeah.
I can understand if we lose. Right, I can understand if, you know what, like something happens and we happen to just lose the game, but we really fought till the very, very last minute. I can accept it. But I really can't accept like the standard of football that we see at the moment and the lack of, just desire and fight from this team. Like they seem beaten before the game's even started.
Yeah, very true.
So I want to quickly talk about like Antonio Conte just for a few minutes. Like I know we always talk about it, but like one of the things that I really dislike about this Spurs team at the moment is exactly that. The fact that they never seem to be up for a game. They never seem to be raring to go. They just don't ever seem to be asked. And like for me, that's part of the job of the manager, the head coach, the whatever you want to call them, right? That's part of the job. They need to be fired up for the game. Absolutely. And they need to know, this is, look, let's not talk too much about Arsenal, but I don't know if the only episode of the All or Nothing that I watched was the episode that we beat Arsenal, right? In the documentary. But I do remember there was a clip before the game at the Emirates where they brought in, I can't even remember who it was, a photographer or someone into the dressing room to do the pre-match talk. And he sold it to them about how he was a lifelong Spurs fan and he knows what it's like to be a fan. And, and it really got everybody up for it. I'm not saying we need to do that, but there needs to be some kind of motivation before these games because the fans turn out in their thousands and show more passion and more effort than the squad do before the game. So, like, why can't Antonio Conte get this team up for a game?
So it's a good question. And North London derby, it's the biggest game of the season. Whether you like it or not, it really is. And not to turn up for a whole half is just not acceptable. And surely he speaks to the players where you would have thought before the game, getting them up and ready for it. But it seems they need his halftime team talk. But even in that second half, although I thought we were better, we didn't really show enough even to have a chance to get back into the game. We missed some big opportunities, but it still wasn't enough for a North London derby for me. It's a good question, though.
Definitely. And like the stats, and I'm not a big stat person, but the stats definitely lie. Because Spurs had more shots on target. I think more touches in the opposition box. just slightly under Arsenal's expected goals, and yet if you read the stats, you would think, how did Spurs lose that game? If you watch the game, you'd think, how did Arsenal not score 5 or 6?
Yeah, they look more likely to score. That's what stat doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you who's looking the most likely on the ball and who's, kind of creating more chances or in a dangerous position. Because, Arsenal, they could have won that game. Only thing grateful for is they didn't go on and completely batter us in the second half. It could have been a rugby score that in the end. So kept it at 2-0. It's still not good enough, but at least it wasn't a rugby score.
Yeah, definitely. And, we'll talk about the turning points in the game. So obviously the first point to talk about is Hugo Lloris, and I hate bashing Lloris because I think, what an incredible goalkeeper he is. But you look back at the recent World Cup, did you see any fumbles, any mistakes, any issues from him in that tournament? I don't remember any, clangers like that. Yet the past 2 games, I would say, he's made, 2 mistakes.
Yeah, I'm not making an excuse for him, but I do think that with France, as I said to you, touched on this last weekend, but he does have a better defence, I think, with the French national team in front of him. But that doesn't, that's no excuse for those mistakes. I think it's also a lack of trust between the defence and the goalkeeper, working both ways. But some of the mistakes he's made, like that first goal against us, that should never go in. But even Odegaard's goal outside the box, if you look at his starting position, you look what Odegaard is when he takes that shot, I don't think you see that going in against Ederson or Alisson personally. And then more mistakes, obviously, on Thursday night against City as well. So he has a lot for answer for. I'm grateful for his service, but it is time, which we should have done already, but should be looking for a long-term replacement. So I'm grateful for his service, but he can't keep making these mistakes. In our biggest of games, City and Arsenal, it's not a small game, it's our biggest games, and he's making more than one mistake at the moment every game. And for a captain also, it's not acceptable. You've got to lead by example.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it. Like, Spurs, I think, need to be really careful, though, in who they then go for as a Lloris replacement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to be very careful.
But at the same time, they need to start acting on it because we can't continue to have, goalkeepers are always that position whereby they make one mistake and it's crucial. It really does turn the game. If a defender misses a tackle, sometimes it can be saved by the goalkeeper or there can be other things done. But, with a goalkeeper, if they fumble the ball into the back of the net, there's not really much you can do to come back from that. So just quickly, because a good friend of mine, Jay, has put a comment in. Now, I was going to wait until we talk a bit more about transfers, but he's in Singapore at the moment, so I don't want to, leave him out in case he has to go. So he said, Harry Kane to Man United for 80 million this summer. Thoughts? So I'll come to you first, Harry, because I think a lot of Spurs fans now are resigned to the fact that Harry Kane more than likely will go in the summer. I would say this is probably the only time that I actually believe that he will go. 80 million for somebody who has, I think at that point he'll only have 12 months left on his contract?
Yeah, I think it's about 12 months, yeah.
What would you say if Man United came in 80 million up front, right? What do you think Spurs will do?
It's a good question. Probably play hardball and probably try and negotiate for a little bit more. Yeah, obviously, I do think he will leave in the summer. I've got to be honest. And you can't blame him. Why would he stay at a club, when he can go and win trophies, whether it's in England or in Spain or, in France, in another country, as you can't really blame him for that. I think he'll want to beat Jimmy Greaves' record, obviously, before moving on, but he might stay in the Premier League and want to beat Shearer's record. Obviously, if he does leave, I hope he goes outside the Premier League. But I think it's realistic at going Man United. They need a centre forward. They got Weghorst. That will do them to the end of the season. But they need a proper centre forward, like City have in Haaland, like we had in Kane. Personally, I'd want to keep him. I would say no to United for 80 million. I value him a little bit higher than that. But I would, if Kane does stay, because you've got to get him some new contract to start with. But as I spoke to you before, I'd like to see Kane being dropped to the deeper midfield role if he does stay Tottenham for the long term. Obviously he hasn't got the pace. I'd like to see him also in midfield. So I hope we keep him. I would turn down United, but it wouldn't surprise me if he left this summer. I can see him leaving.
Yeah, definitely. So what I read this week was that Spurs value for an English side to buy him, they still value him at 100 million. So I think that price is different if the likes of Bayern Munich come in for Harry Kane. I think the price is slightly different. Now I don't know why, because I suppose it's because they don't want to sell him to an English club. But
No,
as you say, I think he breaks Jimmy Green's record anyway, like very soon.
yeah.
Um,
Unless he gets an
and
injury, you'd have thought so. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Because what, he's only a few goals off now.
I think he's one behind, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's one behind, so it's 2 goals to
Yeah, he'll do
Keane.
that. He should do that.
So he then becomes Spurs' all-time leading goal scorer.
He'll want that
Um,
before he leaves.
yeah, and then it would be likely that he would want to stay in the Premier League, I believe. This is where
Yeah,
my mind is tricky, right? Because he would want to stay in the Premier League because obviously he wants to win
share his
trophies, but I
record.
think he also wants to, as people say, oh, it doesn't really matter because it's not a trophy. If you know, go to your deathbed, right, and you are known as the leading goal scorer of all time in the Premier League, that's a big accolade to have, right? But
Yeah,
he also will want to win a trophy. So I can see that happening, but it's then who Spurs bring in. Even if we got 100 million, it's then who do we bring in?
we've got
Um,
Richarlison.
yeah, but Richarlison's not going to score you 25 goals a season, which Harry Kane will.
Probably not. Probably not.
So we need, you know, getting rid of Harry Kane and bringing in, like, I'm just going to use an example, right, as a James Maddison, right, and then have someone behind Richarlison. Richarlison scored 0 Premier League goals this season. Like, you know, he's been injured, and I understand that, but to sit there and be like, oh, don't worry because we've got Richarlison is like a very, very, very poor club mentality, and it will be very, very detrimental to the football club, I believe, if we don't bring in a
Okay, it's
a
interesting.
top quality striker. Frankie's off today again, but he has to be as soon as possible. So it's interesting, but let's move on and go back to Arsenal because want to give kind of plaudits. We did slag Hugo Lloris off, but the one player that did perform well in that game was the Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale, because he did make 2 or 3 good saves in the second half.
Yeah,
And people are saying the game could have changed, and if we'd have scored 1 goal, you never know what might happen. But
true.
we still didn't show enough in the latter stage of the pitch, did we, to compete?
No, I don't think we showed enough. Yeah, we had a few chances. I thought Aaron Ramsdale was fantastic, and people say I do believe one of those goals gone in. It could have been a different game, but overall, in those 90 minutes, we didn't give enough to even get a point out of that game. Arsenal were the better team. They came here with a game plan and they delivered it, and I'll continue to say that. We probably came with a good game plan, but it wasn't executed. That first half is always going to be hard to get back into it. We're going to need a bit of luck. We needed a Ramsdale mistake, but Ramsdale was on his best form and everything went right for Arsenal. And it just perhaps we could have had luck on our side a bit, but overall we didn't give enough to deserve anything out of the game. And I think 2-0 was probably a fair reflection on that game.
Yeah. I definitely think that the last thoughts on this game, because I definitely think that the game was lost in midfield, and I seriously believe that it was naive of Antonio Conte to go with a midfield 2 against. Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to give them plaudits because I don't rate 2 out of the 3 in their midfield, but I genuinely believe that this season, because everybody else is rubbish, that Arsenal's midfield 3 is probably the best midfield in the Premier League at this moment in time.
Yeah.
And to allow the 3 against 2 of ours, not to mention that one of the 2 is making his Premier League start.
Yeah.
Debut, it's mind blowing to think that Antonio Conte thought that we could still win this game, even knowing that that midfield 3 will be able to be overtaken by our midfield 2.
Yeah, I'd just like to stay on that if you don't mind. I think that Arsenal, for their midfield three, you've got to remember they have the right balance. They have the defensive unit in Xhaka, which is our equivalent to Højbjerg. I would say Højbjerg's as good as, if not better. And Arsenal's Thomas Partey's like our Bentancur, creative player. Do rate him, I'd say they're on par. But the difference is they have Odegaard, who's a creative player. That's where we missed out on the opportunity to try and sign like Ericsson on a free, or try and sign Maddison in the summer, because that was the difference in the midfield. They had an extra man, but they had a very good man in midfield in Odegaard, which was the difference in the game. We played with three in midfield and had that the creative midfielder. I mean, it might have worked with us playing three in midfield, but it would have been three fairly defensive bodies, whereas Arsenal have that right balance in midfield of defensive, exciting, and going forwards. They have the midfield was crucial in that, and it is in almost every game that Arsenal play, because they've got the balance in midfield, whereas we haven't because of the lack of investment.
Yeah, agreed. Quick points on what did you think of Sarr's performance against Arsenal? I felt like he was probably the most comfortable person on the ball. I felt like he was probably the calmest out of everybody.
Yeah.
A lot of people said to me they didn't see a lot from him, but I think that what he did, you've got to give him a bit of credit, because, to compete against that midfield pretty much on your own is going to be difficult. But I felt like in tight spaces, he did well with the ball. I felt like he distributed the ball well. And as I said, I think he was very calm. So quickly, what were your thoughts on Sarr's performance?
Very impressive. I really like him. I really do. I thought he didn't put foot wrong in that midfield, and the occasion didn't get to him either. And he was probably our best man in midfield. Let's be honest. He led by example at a young age. Didn't put foot wrong. Calm. Didn't let the occasion get to him. And I would say probably our best player on the pitch. I can't remember him getting anything wrong. He got everything right. So he was the spark out of that game. That was a good thing out of that game, that he was showing good signs. It's promising, but I thought he didn't put foot wrong. So impressed with him against Arsenal. Such a big game, North London derby to come into to start, and he didn't put foot wrong, and he's very, very impressive. Hopefully he got a pat on the back after the game.
Yeah, you would hope so, because as I said, I don't think you could slate him.
He didn't deserve to be on the losing team either.
Exactly, being brought into that kind of game, and I felt like he gave a good account of himself. Probably the only player that did. There is some transfer chat in the comment section, so keep that coming in, and we will get to that very soon. There's one point I did want to talk about, but I wanted to wait for Dave, so we will wait for him in case he does turn up. And
still hiding. He's still hiding.
Exactly, still hiding from you, Harry. He doesn't want to have a debate with you. But
no, he doesn't like it.
Let's move on to Thursday night, because Thursday night was a kind of whirlwind of a match in terms of we did the complete opposite in what we usually do. So for those that missed it, Spurs ended up losing 4-2 to Man City on Thursday night. And do you know what? The Etihad isn't a bad place for Spurs to go, is it? Or even Man City in general. I think that, over the last few years, we've had a pretty decent run of games against Man City. And, come the end of the first half, Spurs, surprisingly, were 2-0 up. And, you started thinking, do you know what? What was weird about this game is I tweeted just before and I said, this is the only game that I've ever seen that I don't really care about for Spurs, because I was really, really torn. And a few of my friends were torn as well, where everyone was saying, we don't want to win because it means that Man City lose ground on Arsenal, but we don't want to lose because you don't want to see your team lose. Before we move on to how we performed, what were your thoughts before the game? Did you have those conflicting thoughts in your brain?
Yeah, I told myself that wasn't bothered, and obviously my main priority now is that Arsenal don't go on and win the title, because I can't see us getting top four. So I looked at that, and when obviously I want us to win, but if we don't, I'm not going to sit here crying about it. That City winning or even get a point there, that will help them in their race to catch Arsenal. But it all of a sudden got to me after the game, because we were 2-0 up at half time, and I was my whole mentality and thoughts changed going 2-0 up, and I was like, come on, you can win this. But typical Spurs, individual mistakes cost us in the second half more than the performance itself. It was, as a team, it was individual mistakes which actually I think cost us more than the way we play in the second half.
Yeah, definitely, because as you say, the first half was a little bit cagey. Spurs played all right, kept Man City at bay, especially when they had two up front with Haaland and Alvarez. And, there was a few changes to their team. There was no, they do change their team a lot. And I started to think maybe Pep Guardiola had already decided the title was done and just decided to rotate. No Kevin De Bruyne, no João Cancelo.
I think he was experimenting.
And Spurs decided to finally turn up. They pressed high up the pitch, which we haven't seen in a long time.
Benson called that nicking it.
Exactly.
Was good.
Won the ball back and... Kulusevski got us 1-0 up. And as you say, you started thinking, hello, we're about to go in.
We're in this.
We're about to go in front at the Etihad once again at half time. And, then all of a sudden, after that, we score again on the stroke of half time and we're 2-0 up. And there were boos at the Etihad, which I've never heard in my life.
No.
How did you think that first half went?
Impressive. I thought we were okay. I thought we'd done the basics well. Basically, it wasn't our best half, obviously, of the season, but we were okay, and we capitalised on City's mistakes, and we caused those mistakes because we pressing them high, and so it's quite impressive going in 2-0 at half time. It's not bad at all. You wouldn't have thought you were in comfortable position. Obviously City. Expect them to come back in the game. Likes of Haaland, got De Bruyne, Foden on the bench. But I felt confident that we can definitely at least get something out of the game. It was a very good first half, and you would have thought the outcome would have been different.
Definitely. Half time comes, and usually this is what confuses me because usually Antonio Conte, you would assume, is the man who has something to shout about, talk to them about, and say get your act together. Let's go out in the second half and let's, fight.
Yeah.
What happened was, it seemed to me like he didn't really know what to do because we weren't losing and we weren't drawing, but we were winning. And then all of a sudden, they come out in the second half and within 18 minutes, I think it was 2-2. And you started thinking,
Christ.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts, at the point where, when Spurs are 2-2, 15 minutes into the second half?
Yeah, well, I went out to make myself a cup of tea. I missed City's first goal, actually. In the second half, I was like, oh, God, here we go again. Obviously, it was a bit of a mistake, a mix-up between Lloris and the defence. I thought, here we go again. But I reckon Conte just said at half-time, keep doing what you're doing and, put in the player's mind. What do we usually do? Oh, individual mistakes, give away goals. So that's probably what they've done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jay said, amazing to hear boos at the Etihad. Impressive voice for the 20,000 fans. A few other people that are joining us this morning. So Holly Agenbar has joined us as well. So good morning, Holly. If you are watching, don't forget to get your comments and thoughts in, or even just say hi. 2-2. You started thinking, oh, do you know what? Let's just
hold on for a point.
Yeah, hold on. Let's just get a point and let's just move on. A point against City, I'd have taken that, every day of the week.
Taking it from the start, absolutely, yeah.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, Perisic gets beat by Mahrez. And then Mahrez, gets a better Ben Davies, shoots, and creeps in at the near post to Hugo Lloris. And again, another mistake from our World Cup winning captain. And, when you have a captain like that, and I don't want this to be 100% bashing of Lloris, but when you have a captain like that, it doesn't really send the best message to the rest of your team, does it?
No, it doesn't. You've got to lead by example, and that shouldn't be going in at his near post. I mean, it's a good shot from Mahrez. As you said, took on Perisic and Davies, done well, but, Lloris surely could see him from a mile away. There's no excuse he couldn't see it. Perfect view of it. And as a goalkeeper, your job is to protect the near post, and he just didn't do that for whatever reason, and that shouldn't be going in. Lloris start the season or last season, that wouldn't be going in.
No, 100%. And Frankie's also said Hugo has to go. At this point, I'm going to bring in Dave in his car. Let's see how his Wi-Fi is. Dave, how you doing?
What's going on, boys? We well?
Hi, Dave.
Yeah, we're good. Good. How are you?
Sorry about the car and the small screen, but I can't turn my phone the other way. But I'm still at work, so apologies, I'm not there.
No, it's absolutely fine. So I want to first of all get your thoughts. I won't keep you too long, Dave, if you don't want to be.
I got 15 minutes, mate. It's fine.
All right, mate. So
I'm on a break, so.
Oh, perfect. So let's talk about Hugo Lloris to start with. We have already discussed the Arsenal game and we've already discussed City, but I want to know your thoughts about both games and about how crucial it is that Spurs make the right choice when, selecting their new first team goalkeeper or first choice goalkeeper.
Oh, okay. So, where do I start really with Hugo? Jesus Christ. Look, great. Thank you for the 11 years or whatever it is you've been at our club. I'm very happy that you've been here so long. I'm sorry you didn't win a trophy. The reality of it is that he's been terrible. Terrible. Mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. I read a stat that before the City game, he'd been at fault for 4 of our goals conceded. So his mistake was 4 of them goals. Now I include the City game in that because he got beat at his near post.
Yeah.
I obviously against Arsenal, that was the 5th mistake. The Saka cross or whatever it was.
Even
and I personally think he should have saved Odegaard's shot as well. Yeah. It was a P roller along the floor. There's no way he should not be getting there. I think that there's been rumours coming about him having this World Cup hangover. All I've got is piss off, mate. You play for your national team in the World Cup. What do you mean a hangover from the World Cup? We're getting a hangover from your performances every week. Like the defence, the problem is we can see so many goals, but a lot of that stems from him because he doesn't give the defence in front of him, as shit as they are, any confidence.
Yeah.
Belief. The first five minutes against Arsenal, we started all right. We looked all right.
Yeah.
And then the ball gets to Hugo. He nearly gets closed down by Nketiah and nearly loses the ball. Then obviously he makes a mistake for the first goal. The second goal came from his goal kick or his clearance. Straight back because he can't kick a ball to save his life as a keeper. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, we know he's poor with his feet, but we've been saying this as Spurs fans. I mean, look, I've been on this channel, 18 months now? And I've been saying the whole time, Hugo's time's up. He makes too many mistakes. He's not good enough with his feet. He's reckless. Every team knows he's got a rick in him these days. Do you know what I mean? Every team knows he's got a mistake in him. So they target that and they use that. He's not commanding. He doesn't command the box. Even against City, when he flapped, I think it was City's first goal, it might have been, or second goal.
Yeah.
When he was huddling and he done that stupid Superman dive. He's not commanding, doesn't take control of the situation at all. And he strikes fear in the defenders in front of him. And the defenders in front of him are poor. I get that. They are poor. But when you are at fault for so many goals, so consistently, you have to know your time is up. If you want my opinion on who we should be looking at next, I personally would look at the obvious ones. Sanchez at Brighton, David Raya, and Livakovic. They're the 3 keepers that I would look at. I like Pickford, but if you get Everton's Pickford, he's average. He's like Maguire. You get him for England, he's unbelievable. You get him for his club, and he's a walking disaster. So I'm not a fan of Pickford, as good as he is with his feet. I do think he's too small. So I think we need to really, really push on from the cheap deals, which is never going to happen, as we know, because we've got Daniel Levy in charge of the club, and he bid 12 million for Trossard like it was 2003.
No, yeah, I get you, and that's a good point. Actually, is I want to kind of go around the table and discuss, those goalkeeping options, because one of the option that I've been screaming out for a long time, he may still not be the right fit, but I still believe that there's a deal to be had with United for Dean Henderson. And I think that he's a young goalkeeper and he could be a Hugo long-term replacement. I think that financially that one works. I also think that Raya works. I think that potentially Sanchez works financially. Whether Brighton will sell based on who they're already selling, because they could end up selling Moise Caicedo as well. But I just don't believe, Harry, that financially the Pickford deal works. I think that he costs too much money for a keeper that, as you say, Dave, if we get England's Pickford, top draw. If we get Everton's, Pickford, we get T-Rex arms. What are your thoughts, Harry?
I like Pickford personally. I would disagree on the average bit. I think he's better than average, but I think the price tag is high, and I can't see it happening with Spurs. We're more than likely to go for someone like Dean Henderson. I can't see Brighton selling Sanchez either. But personally would look at, like you said, Luke, with Dean Henderson. You've got David Raya, another one. Meslier for Leeds, don't forget. But the best financial.
Even Meslier, he makes too many mistakes as well. He's another one that makes loads of mistakes. The issue with the Dean Henderson thing is we're competing with Man United. Why are they going to strengthen us?
Yeah, I understand. But then the likelihood, as we discussed this earlier, is that, I believe United come in for Harry Kane. And there could be something done, with that. The thing is with Dean Henderson is he actively wants out of Man United due to the failed promises that they have given him before.
Yeah.
That's why he went on loan to Harry Kane. Because he was told he would be number one. He was told stay, and you will play. And, he hasn't. So I can see a deal being done because he wants to be a number one goalkeeper in a Premier League team. It's going to be very, very interesting. And, this will roll on for a long time because I don't think we even start to look at it until the summer. And then then, depends who's the manager of Spurs, depends who's the owner of Spurs,
Depends whether Paratici's in jail or not.
Yeah, that's another talking point. But
all forgetting about that.
Exactly. But, while you've still got a few more minutes, Dave, I want to bring up a recent tweet that you sent out. So I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact tweet, but it was something
I can tell you the exact tweet if you want.
What does Højbjerg do right? Because
it was tell me what Højbjerg does right, and I'll call you a liar.
Okay, and I feel like you're going to call Harry a liar. So Harry, first of all, what does Højbjerg do right?
I've got a lot to say. You need a Højbjerg for a start in every team. Every team has someone like Højbjerg. Arsenal with Xhaka. Don't tell me that Xhaka's better than Højbjerg. Højbjerg's has good odds, if not better. And you need someone who does the defensive jobs that Højbjerg does. And if anyone's going to create something for me when Bentancur's injured, it is Højbjerg. And I say Bentancur is definitely our most important midfielder. But Højbjerg does a lot right. And you've got to remember, he saved us this season in big games. Like at Stamford Bridge, he started the comeback, Champions League, important goals. He's popping up with more goals and more assists this season. I've actually got stats here. Played 19 matches for us this season, 4 goals, 2 assists. And like I said, started the comeback against Chelsea. He's a big game player as well. And as our best player, don't forget, under Mourinho, he's consistently done it under lots of different managers. And I can't see where you're coming from, Dave. I agree with a lot that you said, but I think you've had a bit of a nightmare with this one.
A couple of questions for you, Harry.
Let me jump in first. Right. So I'll be the moderator in this. So I
just want to pick up on the points he said before I forget.
Yeah, I did not know those stats. So, he definitely has, come up with a few more assists, a few more goals. This season, 19 games, 4 goals, 2 assists. Not bad for a defensive midfielder. But Dave, what are your thoughts on those?
I got some stats too, boys.
Oh, go on, yeah.
Right. So, Harry, what's Højbjerg's position?
I would say defensive midfielder. Obviously, he isn't playing in that position. But he's very good at defensive midfielder.
Just one answer.
Plays defensive midfielder.
One answer. That's it. Okay. What's his position?
He's playing out of position.
Out of position. What's his position?
Best position defensive midfielder if he played in that.
Where's he playing for Tottenham? Where's he playing for Tottenham?
Central midfield, out of positions. So that's why he does even better.
What formation do we play?
Well, obviously play with the back three. So sometimes it could be
3-5-2.
Usually 3-4-3 though.
With a 3-5-2, okay, you have 3 defenders, 2 holding midfielders. Those holding midfielders, one of them is always Højbjerg. Now, do you want to talk about stats? How long's Casemiro been in the Premier League?
Not long. He's been good.
Okay.
I'd put Højbjerg in.
Hang on, let me finish. How many, if I said to you right now, tackles 1, how many tackles would you expect 19 games into a season, a defensive midfielder to have made in a team like Tottenham that concede as many goals as we do and sit on the back Sit back. How many tackles? What per game? Give me a rough average per game.
I'm not going to give you a number, but I'm going to say it's going to be a lot. But I think we've got to compare the stats and consider how bad that we actually are. And you've got to remember the team around him as well.
20 tackles a game.
20 tackles a game. Okay,
yeah.
So Højbjerg, tackle percentage, tackles won this season, 24.
In the whole season?
In the whole season. Casemiro has been in the Premier League for not that long.
He's in a better team, though, Dave. He's in a better team.
Hang on, no.
Players around him.
No, but you're missing the point.
Knows what he's doing.
I know, but you're missing the point. He's a defensive midfielder.
Playing out of position. Casemiro plays in his position, in his natural position for United, but Højbjerg's playing out of position and doing the same job that Casemiro does.
He's not playing out of position. He's playing in front of the defence. But let me finish. Okay? Let me finish. Okay. So another thing that obviously you want to talk about Casemiro, he's playing for a better team. If you look at stats, right? If you go from the top of the table, the very top team, so Arsenal, for example, with Xhaka and with Partey in their midfield, their stats for tackles should be
top of the league.
A lot. Hang on, no. Their tackles,
top of the league.
Let me finish. I know they are. This is what I'm saying. I'm getting to the point. Let me get to the point. So Xhaka and Partey, top of the league, their percentage of tackles and the amount of tackles they make will be a lot lower than a team lower down the league, right?
Yeah.
Because the team lower down the league does more defending. Team lower down the league does more dog work. They sit in more, right? We don't play fast attacking football. We sit in. We sit in with banks of 5 or a bank of 4. Okay. Now, what I want to say about Højbjerg is you talk about the percentage and the numbers. He runs the least in our team. Okay, fact. His pass stats, they're not that great. He'll take a long pass and he'll kick it straight out of play. Okay, we've seen that so many times. I'll tell you 2 things that Højbjerg's good at: pointing at people and beating his chest.
You need that. You need someone to point and lead by example.
Okay, one more question for you.
Around him, though, Dave, I'm going to continue to say that. Look at the players around him. He's out of position. He's a leader. We do a lot of defending. That's why he doesn't do as much running.
What's his job?
Well, defensive midfielder. He's not playing in the right position.
So
I know. But look, his creative stats: 4 goals and 2 assists.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. If I was doing my job, right, and I was doing a lot less work than the other guy does exactly the same job as me.
Not in your usual
I give everybody
though.
Encouragement, and I cheer everybody on, and I G everybody up.
Yeah,
you need that. Okay, so tell me, who's out of the top 4 teams right now? Arsenal, City, Newcastle, and United. In their teams, who is he better than their midfielders?
Well, I think Højbjerg's better than Xhaka for a start. Newcastle obviously have Guimaraes. I wouldn't call him a defensive midfielder, but Casemiro plays in the right position for Man United and has got a world-class team around him. Whether United fans like it or not, they've got now an invested team full of world-class players. Got Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes next to him.
But why does that matter in defensive tackles?
Oh, it matters the team you've got around him. And look at the defence. He has a lot of responsibility to do when you have a defence like we have. And then Conte doesn't play in the right position. But look at under Mourinho. Again, I would say probably our best player. I know you've got Son and Kane, but Højbjerg, I would say, was the most important player.
One of the most important players under Mourinho. I'll give you that. He was good under Mourinho. I'm not going to sit here and say he wasn't, because he was. But the reality of it is, Højbjerg this season, apart from those 2 goals he chipped in against Chelsea and against Marseille, I think it was, for a player in his position, statistically, is one of the poorest in the league. And that's fact. You can look it up yourself. You can look at tackle percentage, tackles won, duels won, aerial duels won, pass completion, etc. You can look at all of that. Under Mourinho, he was good. He was quite progressive. He used to bring the ball out and play it off nice and simple. You can't use the argument that Casemiro is surrounded by all these great players, because it doesn't matter whether he's surrounded by 10 dustmen. His job is to be a defensive. His job is to be a defensive midfielder. It doesn't matter who's around him. His job is to stop.
Casemiro would trust his back 4, and he would trust his manager, and he would trust his midfield.
But then he'd be doing less than Højbjerg if he trusted them. He'd be doing less than Højbjerg if he trusted them, because he'd be like, "Oh, don't worry, they got this." Højbjerg should be running around like a maniac. Like, I don't trust my back 4. I can't let Lloris face a shot. I need to get that ball. I need to chase that ball. I put a picture in our group chat. Did you see it about
No.
Arsenal's second goal? Right, Martin Odegaard picks up the ball from the edge of the box. The whole picture, right? Højbjerg is just coming into our half. He's a defensive midfielder. What the hell? He must have got a nosebleed being that far up. But like I said, stats back it up. An opinion on the tweet based on the reaction to the tweet. There is a lot more people that agree with me than there is you.
Right.
That's the problem with our fan base, though. Because you're getting rid of an important player. Every team has to have a Højbjerg. Arsenal have in Xhaka, and don't tell me that Xhaka's fantastic because I'm not having any of that.
I would rather have winners. I would rather have winners. Winners. I don't care if you try hard. If you're not, I mean, Eric Dyer tries really hard. He's still shit. Emerson Royale spent £1 million on lessons about how to be a better footballer. He tries hard.
The difference is Højbjerg steps up when needs it most, and he steps forward like you called him out of position there because if he's playing in that defensive midfield role, then that would be a problem. But listen. He's playing next to Bentancur, which is I think
3-5-2.
Well, not really. It's more of a 3-4-3. To be honest.
Okay, but he's playing next to Bentancur. Bentancur obviously goes forward a lot more and is more progressive, which means Højbjerg should be deeper, playing as like a holding midfielder,
they kind of play next to each other. It's creative.
Jacket. And one more stat I did find as well, just really quickly. One more stat I did find. One more stat. Quick, let me finish. Caicedo for Brighton.
Very good, yeah.
I'm not even going to tell you. But look at his stats
team that's doing well under De Zerbi, yeah.
Look at his stats compared to Højbjerg's.
He's a good player. He's also in a good team that's doing very well at the moment, in a better place as a club.
That doesn't matter. His stats should be worse because he's in a better team. If you're in a worse team, you should be tackling more, heading more, winning more balls. To only win 24 tackles, 19 games into the season, that's like just over one tackle a game.
But has Caicedo done it consistently for Brighton, season in, season out? No.
Has Højbjerg done it consistently for Tottenham?
I would say so. Under Mourinho, even under Nuno when we're struggling, he also stepped up. And I think he's been given a different role in terms of creativity. And he started the comeback against Chelsea, and I'll stick to that, and gets important goals. I don't think he's been fantastic this season. I'm going to be honest. I think he was better last season and even the season before. And I think Bentancur's the more important midfielder. But my point is, and I continue to say, every team needs an Højbjerg. Arsenal have Xhaka, who's I'm going to be honest, I think Højbjerg's better. And he's working at Arsenal because they have the right midfield balance. We don't have that creativity. Whereas every team needs a Højbjerg, to be honest with you. And people say, we've got Basuma, we've got Skip, but they're not as good.
No, they're better. They're better.
Player who steps up in big games.
Like I said, we might look at. I'm going to wrap it up. Okay.
I think you've lost this one.
I definitely haven't. We might disagree on certain things, but what I will say is, it doesn't matter how hard you try. If you're no good in your position, or if you're no good in that midfield,
I would disagree because against Arsenal we lacked effort.
Right, okay, everybody's been muted so that we can move on from this segment. That was very interesting and some awkward moments from those watching. Frankie's hiding behind his sofa probably at this moment in time, but it is good to see. And it was a good debate. Everyone is now back. So
just put a poll up on. I'll put a poll up on the podcast and share it.
And we'll put a poll up on Twitter and see.
Let's see if our fans can wake up.
Yeah, and see who.
Well, boys, I've really got to get back to work, but I love you both. All right, I'll see you soon.
Take care,
Harry. That was good from you, mate.
Take care. See you soon.
Right. Okay.
Enjoyed that.
Right. Okay. So that was explosive, more explosive than I expected it to be. So
I was ready for that.
I feel like both gave a good account of themselves. So that was good. I kind of just stayed out and let you guys fight it out. I do agree with both points. I agree. That Højbjerg is an interesting player for me because if you watch him at Denmark, he does play a more progressive, more free roaming role. He does attack a lot more for Denmark. But I also agree, with Dave in the sense of that, 24 tackles in 19 games, regardless of if you're in position or out of position, is atrocious. And that picture that, that's going around Twitter, is not too dissimilar from a goal that Arsenal scored at the Emirates against us when Nuno was in charge, and we had nobody tracking back. And I feel like that's just a replicated picture because it's not too dissimilar of that. So, I'm not saying he's blameless.
No, he's
let
not.
me talk about under the likes of a Pochettino, right? Under a Pochettino, I believe that he would probably play as a DM.
Yeah, and he'd thrive. Yeah.
And, because I believe we'd probably play 4-1-2-1-2 or something like that under Poch, maybe. We may even play, I'm trying to think of my numbers here. 4-1-2-3. Do you know what I mean? Or 4-1-2-2-1.
That's
with
his
that
best
player.
position.
But, he does offer something in an attacking role as well. But as I said, you can't shy away from 4 goals, 2 assists in 19 games from a player out of position. But you also can't shy away from that. They're the 2 stats I took from that, where you can't shy away from 24 tackles won in 19 games, because that's awful. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Johnny D's in the chat as well. Arsenal fan giving us some shit. I would read out some of them, but I think you put emojis in some of them, and so it just reads out the actual emojis. So,
yeah.
So anyway, let's carry on. Let's talk a little bit about transfers now. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about with you, Harry. So first one is Zaniolo. So there are links again with us. I think there were links in the summer, links with us again now. From what I was reading last night and watching on Sky Sports News, they were saying that this deal looks extremely unlikely due to the fact that Roma want a permanent deal. Spurs want
loan to buy.
Spurs want like a loan with a potential buy, but then they want a minimum of like 35 million buy, and obviously Spurs won't pay that. I can't see it happening, to be honest. I think, again, it would be one of those deals that gets done if the price is right. But could be interesting because he's been dropped from the team or the squad this week for Roma this weekend, and also his agent is in London to discuss it. Shout out to Johnny, who respect you as well. But move on to actually, what are your thoughts on that if it does come to fruition, Harry, the Zaniolo?
Yeah, I think he's a good player, but we're so slow to these things. Just get on with it. Like with Trossard, we're going to move on to, I believe, in a minute. We're just so slow and so pathetic for a big club, really. And yeah, we are a top 4 club, but we really don't act like it sometimes. We really don't. And like with Zaniolo, you get someone like Chelsea who will just go in straight away and show some ambition, which top clubs do. I understand we haven't got the money that they have, but they show ambition. And you can show ambition not necessarily to do with money as well, but kind of we look around and not being funny, but how many days a week? 21st today. So right, we're more the majority of the way through the window. We signed nobody. We look like they're going to sign nobody because we don't show ambition. We kind of a bit Levy Paratici sitting around there going, should we buy a player? Should we put an offer? And, instead of getting on with it, right, let's just pay the money, take some risk, like with Porro. If it doesn't work out, never mind. If it hasn't worked out with lots of different players, just pay the money and show some ambition, because then you can turn around and say to fans, look, we're sorry, we tried with this player, it didn't work out. We were ambitious, it just didn't work out. And I get that, but it's all reluctant, not being funny, but we're 5th. It's very unlikely at the moment we're going to get top 4 unless Newcastle drop off, and we could by the end of the weekend be 6th or 7th, just to give you an idea. And that isn't good enough. So it's time to show some ambition. We're not in a great place, but we're still in the FA Cup, Champions League. So if you want to win the trophy, actually back Conte and show some ambition.
Yeah, definitely. Paddy, big up to you this morning. Said, morning, folks. I would say the transfer section will be very short. I can't see us signing anyone of worth. The whole thing is a mess. And Johnny has said the defense is a problem. Mahrez looked like a kid in Candyland.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think
spot on, absolutely spot on.
I still don't rate Mahrez as a huge player in the Premier League. I think
I don't.
But he looked like he was prime Messi in the game the other night. I agree with you. I think that if Spurs want to do a deal, let's do a deal. Let's not
get on with it.
I don't want to use a bad language, but let's not mess about, right? Let's just, as you say, show something, because there's two two players I want to talk about. Right? There's Marcus Edwards and Madueke. So both players are Spurs youth players, right? Who played in the academy, and both players Spurs got rid of. Chelsea are about to sign Madueke on a permanent deal from, I think he plays for PSV, and unless I'm mistaken. And it just blows my mind that we had these incredible, talented players. Pochettino is the one that said Marcus Edwards' attitude wasn't right. And, he was the one that let him go. Again, he's now worth about 50 million. Spurs have a 50% buy.
So Tottenham
have a sell-on fee for him. And so if anyone does buy him, well, great, we'll make 25 million. That doesn't affect us when he could be playing first-team football now at Spurs. And again, Madueke to sign for Chelsea when he was a Spurs youth player at one point is crazy to me. And so, I think there is some worry for me in those departments. But, the thing that confuses me is, I was never hugely keen on Trossard at Spurs anyway. I thought that, I don't know if he makes a huge difference to our starting lineup. He's a good bench player to have. And I don't think he adds much to Arsenal either. The one thing I think about it with Arsenal, but Arsenal showed the ambition, decided to pay the money. Spurs decided to try and get it for half the price.
12 million for Trossard. I mean, what was it? They got him for 27 million. That's a bargain as it is. Nowadays, you're paying 12 million. I mean, that's just seriously. I actually think that's an insult. It's just pathetic. Why bother?
Yeah, definitely. And, he's a strange one for Arsenal because, Arsenal have, branded this, and Johnny in the comments, if he's still watching, might want to pipe in with this, but Arsenal and Arteta have shown this, faith in youth and, buying young, talented players. I think they're about to buy a 21-year-old left-footed centre-back from, I can't even remember who they're buying him from, but that looks like it's done as well, according to
this morning.
But Trossard is 28. And so it's a really interesting one, I think, for Arsenal to suddenly say, do you know what? We're going to buy this 28-year-old and go against the grain of what we're doing at the moment for the short and medium term, as opposed to kind of a long-term prospect. And I find that interesting. Did Arsenal decide to buy him because Spurs were keen, or were they always tracking Trossard?
No, probably always tracking Trossard. And they might have looked at Spurs are interested and thought, we're going to win this. It's simple, Trossard's only got to look at the table, look at the owners, look at the difference between where the clubs are. And it's a clever short-term signing. It is, they want to win the title. You've got to sign the experienced, established players. There's no good buying 18, 19-year-olds when you want to win the title. It might be good in 3 years' time. But yeah, I think Trossard's a good signing. And like with Spurs, he wouldn't have made perhaps a difference to our starting lineup. And there's other positions which I think we should prioritise. A whole of defence, centre-back, right wing-back, maybe even a creative midfielder. There's other position, goalkeeper, that we need to prioritise. But Trossard for 27 million isn't bad. And you think Son's not in great form at the moment. And we've only got to get an injury to Kane, Kulusevski, Son, even like Richarlison again. And all of a sudden we need a forward. So I think it was another missed opportunity. Bidding 12 million, people say, oh, we've tried. Bidding 12 million, I mean, that's an insult. 27 million you're taking, because let's say Arsenal have him until the end of the season. They might even sell him in the summer, right? And they're going to get more than 27 million back for him. They already made money. So that's another missed opportunity. I'm surprised because I thought Levy would look at that and go, oh, cheap player, we'll go for him. But to try and 12 million, I mean, I think that's an insult.
Yeah, no, I do agree. One of the things about this that does concern me and about the lack of transfer activity is, do you think, I'll try and make it quite quick, do you think the issues and investigations with Juventus and Fabio Paratici are becoming an issue for Spurs in terms of doing business this window?
Yeah, I don't think that's the problem. I think that's one of the problems. You've got to remember you've got a manager who hasn't committed his long-term future by signing a contract, and rightly so, by the way, because Conte, I'm going to look at it in both their perspectives. Conte, why would he sign a new contract when you haven't been backed? And, you could look at where we are now. Does he really want to be a part of this? You can't blame him for that. If he's not going to, doesn't know he's going to be backed or not. And same with Levy. To be fair, don't often at the moment defend Levy, but in Levy's defence, why would he back a manager who hasn't committed long term. So I see both sides of it. I think we're stuck, and you've got the Paratici issue, just typical. We've got a lot of problems on and off the pitch as we speak. And the club is in a mess, despite us looking like people look at the table and go, "Oh, Spurs are fifth, in the Champions League, round of 16, still in the FA Cup." But if you look at the problem, with the owners off the pitch, issues with Paratici, protests as we speak, and our form, there is a lot of problems with this club that's been patched up by fifth, which isn't actually too bad. But by the end of the weekend, if Brighton win and Fulham beat us, we'd be seventh. So it could easily change.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't even consider that, because then the league and the season looks completely different. I don't want to talk too much about Paratici and Juventus because I don't actually know too much about it. I was reading last night that it looks like he's going to get 2.5-year ban, but that is from Italian football. Did I read?
Correct.
And not English football?
Yeah, I got told this morning that at the moment it should just be in Italy, but that they're looking into it, that it can change. So at the moment, I believe it's just in Italy. But it is a bit of a problem because it leaves questions around, and more questions about Levy. Why did he hire someone under investigation? Didn't he do due diligence? So that is a question, and it is. I can understand people's concerns. But at the moment, I don't. The ban's not in England, so hopefully that should be okay. But that can quite easily be overturned.
Yeah, definitely. And I see Levy looking into that now, and if that could be the case, I see them parting company with him rather than having him, at the club.
Yeah, I can understand. It's frustrating, but I can understand that. It doesn't look good for Levy.
People have said there's been a lack of, videos of Paratici on the phone, and lack of, those videos that we see of him at games, on the phone. And it could be that reason why.
I said that to my dad this morning, actually, because as I said, we went New Year's Day and I had as a birthday present the Tunnel Club. So I actually sat just behind him. Okay. I actually had a very brief conversation with him. And though he seemed happy, he was on the phone a lot and he was constantly on the move, like something was bothering him. I assumed at the time when transfer window started, he's a busy man, but he couldn't settle, he couldn't sit. He looked like a man who was bothered, even on the bench, by every slightest little thing. So perhaps that was that. Perhaps he's on the phone trying to sort that out. Who knows? But yeah, when I saw him, although it was nice having a conversation with, obviously watching the whole game, he looked bothered. A man who was bothered by something, and I just assumed it was the busy time of year. But if you think about it, it does make sense.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Okay. So let's move on to a quick preview of this weekend's game. So it's Tottenham against Fulham. Again, should be a game, in previous seasons, in the attitude of football, and
we'd always win. Yeah,
you should look at this game and say Spurs will
win.
3 points. Yeah, 3 points. Don't see anything different. Does your attitude now change and say, do you know what, we could get beat here?
Do you know, it does change. I look at the game now and I go, stupid as it may sound, I'd take a point already, just because we could get battered. You're playing up against someone like Mitrovic, and we've got players who can hardly see the ball, let alone head it, for example. So, I'm concerned going into that game, and I say it now, I'll take a point, because if we get battered by Fulham, like Everton did, like Villa did, it was the end of Gerrard, and it really could be the end of Conte. If we get battered 2-3-0, I think Conte's future is in trouble. So I'd take the point now, away from home against Fulham, a team that's in a good place right now. And people go, oh, it's Fulham, but they're in a good place as a club under Marco Silva. Fulham have never been, I don't think, for a long time in such a good place. And away from home and take a point, that means we haven't lost to them this season. And they're beating clubs around them, Fulham. So I would take a point now, and I can't even see us getting that. I can see Mitrovic already scoring a hat-trick.
Yeah, that's it. The only thing that I look at is I don't really worry too much about Fulham all over the pitch. I don't believe they have as good players, as good a squad as we do all over the pitch. Yes, they have, important players. And yes, they have an ex-Spurs player or loanee playing for them as well, who actually scored the winner the other day, didn't he? Carlos Vinicius. And still have a soft spot for him. He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But I'm gonna stick my neck on the line and say that we will win. We'll get back to winning ways, 3 points, and the season rolls on. But I want to touch on this ridiculous comment from Johnny that says, FA, as an Arsenal fan, would potentially relegate Arsenal into the 4th division under such circumstances. Spurs remain the only team not to be disadvantaged by referees. FA.
We had this last weekend.
FA. Oh, seems like we're back. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I missed all of that. I don't know what happened. The Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So anyway, I find that a mind-blowing comment. But anyway, let's move on to some score predictions. So score predictions for the Fulham game. Then Harry, stick your neck on the line.
2-0 Fulham. Mitrovic brace.
Oh my God! Just gone for a Spurs loss straight off the bat.
Conte to be sacked Tuesday morning as well.
Do you actually reckon that will happen?
Yeah, no, I think if we get back to 3-4-0, maybe even 2, I think Levy look at that and go, "Oh, I think Conte's the problem." No, mate, you're the problem. So I think I think we'll lose. I'm really worried. I'm actually more worried about it than the City game. It may sound stupid, but Fulham away in a good position. We're not in a good place as a club, and I can't just get anything out of it. You've got to be honest.
Yeah, that's blown my mind. Okay, I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs win. I think that we'll go 1-0 down in the first half, classic Spurs. And I think we'll rally the troops. And I can't see it. I can't see us losing. I can't see Levy sacking Conte. He's so tight with money, and the guy's contract is up in the summer. Why would he bother? Of course, he will look at,
look at our form.
Lots of Champions League revenue for not getting in the Champions League. But then he can also look at the fact that if we actually progress against AC Milan, then there's more revenue coming for reaching that stage. So, I don't see Levy sacking him, but
it wouldn't surprise me though. We've had it before.
But if you look at the recent stats, for Spurs in our last 10 games, it's horrendous looking at.
It is, yeah.
And for me,
before and post World Cup,
people need to start waking up to the fact that what does Conte offer this Spurs team? What does he really offer? Because right now, I don't see anything. I don't see anything that he offers that, another manager wouldn't offer. But it could be interesting because I also read yesterday that the people behind Tuchel said that Tuchel is not a viable option for Spurs.
Why would he come to our club in the mess we're in at the moment? For example, what would you?
I don't know why you'd want another checkbook manager. To be quite honest, I believe you would want backing. I believe you'd want financial support. I believe that he would want all of those things, and I don't believe that we will offer it to him.
Yeah, can I just say, if you don't mind, Luke, on that, if you're going to get world-class managers, we touched on that last weekend, but I just wanted to make it clear again. Like, if you're going to hire world-class managers like Mourinho and like Conte, who was, by the way, serial winners, proven winners, big name, win trophies wherever they go, then you've got to back them. I wouldn't have a problem with going with someone like Potter or even Ryan Mason and not backing them and doing like Arsenal done with Arteta, but eventually backing them. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Us spending no money in the transfer window if we had someone like Potter or Mason. I get that. Thinking for the long term, buying for the long term, I'd feel more confident. It's the fact that you're getting world-class manager. It'd be Tuchel next, then it'd be Potter after that. It'll keep going. It'd be like a cycle. I can see it happening. It's Chelsea cycle. We get them when they're past their best as well. But I just honestly I can't see it. And Tuchel won't solve the problem. Poch won't solve the problem. And I don't think Conte's the problem either. He needs to be backed. He's a world-class manager. You can't question what Conte's doing at Spurs when it's worked wherever he's gone. And doesn't Levy sit there and go, am I the problem? Or like, why is these managers won elsewhere? But here. I think you just look at that. I think in a minute, after the Fulham game, you look at it and go, "Oh, Conte's the problem." No, mate, it's you.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very.
That's the reality, and it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. It is sad. But look, it is what it is. We have to keep positive. We have to move on because otherwise, what else do we have? Despair and sorrow, and that's not what I want. So, let's keep positive for the game on Monday night. And let's hope that Spurs can bring us some joy for next week's show.
I'll be surprised. Let's hope so.
Yeah, because hopefully we will be joined back by Dave and also by Winnie to chat all things, Spurs and what has happened in the last week. Dave's come in and said 2-1 Spurs, same as me. So good job, Dave. If you have enjoyed the show and you have enjoyed watching us, please do follow. We do have heated debates, but we also have, a lot of other things that happen on this channel. So we really, really do appreciate your support. We do it all for free. And, we appreciate every comment that we get on every show, regardless of who you support, regardless of what you say. We appreciate the fact that you're spending your time to input on this channel. So thank you all very, very much. Please like the channel, subscribe to the show, follow us on all podcast platforms, and don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. So before we finish, Harry, again, another epic show from you. How can everybody find you?
Thank you, Luke. You can find me on all socials, most actively on Twitter. You've got my handle there. I won't try pointing to it, always point in the opposite direction. There you go. That's my Twitter handle there. But you'll probably see me, probably usually moaning about Spurs. You'll most see me most active on Scarfy Spurs Talk, which is what I created in 2021, an independent hub for like Spurs news, transfer news, and asking the fans questions. It's making progress at the moment. So you mainly know me from that, yes, but you can, and Scarfy Spurs Talk is a multi-platform. That's where you can find me.
Perfect. You can also find me at Luke_Park_Lane, but more importantly, make sure you follow the podcast at Park Lane Pod on all social media, and Park Lane Podcast on your listening podcast. So thank you all very, very much for joining. We really do appreciate you, and we will see you next week with hopefully some good news to bring you, and it won't be all doom and gloom. But until next time, all we can say is, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you.